Hello everyone, my name is Mark, and I know we've been talking about voice quite a bit, so without further ado, let's do a quick demo here. So that's my wife. But as you can see, that's my phone. I'm casting up there. So I've just tapped into our mobile app. I'm going to log into our pre-production system. If it was a client, that could be white labeled. So they might not even need to log in. It might just have their logo on there. You can see I'm then presented with login credentials. You could manually add users to your system, and they'd log in on the bottom portion. The top portion there is using Active Directory, so we have Active Directory integration. We also, as a company, use single sign-on, so that means when I tap on it, I don't have to put in any credentials, which is really nice. And here's our list of voice skills, and maybe it'd be helpful to just review some terminology for a moment. And that is, so a voice skill is like it's a voice app within this app, right? And so in this case, there's actually multiple. There's quite a few voice skills in here, and that's partly because these are things that we're doing for clients or that we're working on, enhancing for our production environment. But if for most of our clients, they typically have one skill, and then within that skill, they have intents. And an intent it could be a question. When people think about voice, they tend to think about asking for information because so many people use echo devices at home, and that's what's the weather and things of that nature. But there's a lot more that you can do than just ask for questions. You can run calculations on the fly. You can put data into systems, so you can speak data in. And so within a skill, you can have different kinds of intents, and those different kinds of intents can go retrieve data from different sources. Nick already touched on the fact that it could retrieve data from a database. It could also retrieve data from API or from to launch URLs, as we'll see in a minute. So if I just actually let me back up for a second. So CFO Concierge, the second one down there, it's got the Amazon logo. Part of the reason why it has the Amazon logo is because at reInvent last year, when Nick showed that slide of the CTO, Werner Vogels, giving his keynote speech, again, we were a launch partner for Alexa for Business, and they were considering using this skill. This is something we built for them up on stage, but of course, with a global audience, I think they were a bit shy on, technical mishaps with, casting phones and so forth. So. But at any rate, so this is using Amazon's quarterly data, and you can just ask a question: what is our asset growth rate?
The most recent asset growth rate is 34.89% year over year. How may I assist you next?
So again, we talk a lot about frictionless data access. I mean, you can see, like, when we think about who would use this, who voice helps the most, it's generally probably non-technical people or people who are mobile, because if you're not at a desktop, it's hard to be writing SQL queries to get the data that you need. And of course, if you're non-technical and you don't write SQL, then you're probably putting some request in the queue with IT, and you're waiting to get a report generated back. We do a lot of work with dashboards, and dashboards are great, but there's often data that's there's a lot of investment that goes into the data warehouse and into data modeling. Not all of that information is always surfaced in the dashboards, and so users have to go to IT and say, can you please add this? Can you please add that? And it'd be really nice for them to just be able to access that data. There's you can see in the bottom here, if I scroll through these bubbles, actually so the idea behind the bubbles is, you've probably seen this before in some other apps, but if I tap on it, it'll kind of start guiding me through what I can ask. So I said I want the most recent KPI, and then down here in the bottom, we get a list of like 33 KPIs I could ask for. Again, this is kind of for either new or infrequent users to help guide them through the discussion. You also notice at the top here, when I launched the app, it gave me a welcome message. It knows who I am because I'm logged in. Nick talked about authentication. So it knows I'm Mark. Hello, Mark. Welcome to CFO Concierge. We do design with what we call voice first in mind. The user's not always going to have a screen to look at. So if you're using an Echo Dot or a regular Echo where there is no screen, they need to be guided through verbally, so they get that kind of top level message about what they can ask about, and then it'll start guiding them through and say, yeah, tell me about KPIs, and then it'd say, okay, what kind of KPI do you want to know about? But if you've got a visual interface, then you can use the smart bubbles to tap through. The smart bubbles do represent basically like another form of menu, and voice is a way to overcome menus. So once the user understands that they can drill down into particular data sets and call different functions, they'll start short-circuiting that by just asking for the data like I did. And again, there's about 33 KPIs in here, so I could say, what is our R&D expense in first quarter 2015?
The R&D expense in the first quarter of 2015 is $2.75 billion.
That's a lot of R&D, and that Nick touched upstairs on the fact that even just a year ago the AWS console had 80 services, and now it's at 130, and that's a reflection of this kind of R&D spend. If we wanted to run a calculation, what is the change in R&D expense from first quarter 2015 to first quarter 2017?
R&D expense changed $2.06 billion from the first quarter of 2015 to the first quarter of 2017.
So, quick math, they're doing over $4 billion in R&D expense. It's pretty nuts. So, let's look at some quick data. Another concept that we find really resonates with clients is the concept of briefings. So this is a skill that we built for one of our clients, Pioneer. If you don't know them, they're the largest oil and gas producer in the United States. We've now overtaken Saudi Arabia, so that's actually a pretty big statement to say you're the biggest oil producer in the U.S. And so they like briefings. So if I tap on briefings, again, just to kind of showcase the smart bubbles, you can see once I tapped on it, again, if you were doing this without, if you were following the verbal cues on Echo, it then gave me what I can ask about. I can get an executive briefing or a Permian production briefing. Permian is a region in Texas where there's a lot of oil, and they're very active. If I tap on it, if I tap on the executive briefing, you can see it calls up a bunch of information. This is something that senior executives wanted to know. They want to know the price of oil. They want to know the weather in Midland, because weather, freezing temperatures can affect the oil rigs and so forth. They want to know how many rigs are currently running, what their oil production is per day, and the last recorded incident, because safety is key concern for oil and gas companies. So again, executive briefing or briefings of any kind, and you can see there's actually more than one kind of briefing. So we think a lot about personas when we build these skills, and you could have briefings by persona to surface the information, again, in a frictionless manner, for people across your organization. Let's see. Yeah, I was just going to get to that. Yep. Trying to stay out of the way of the projector. And so this mobile app is one channel. We think a lot about channels. Again, different personas are going to have different needs in terms of how they access data. And so and accessing data, again, we do talk a lot about, since our focus is on enterprises, a lot of times it's, let me just pull up our website here. Our focus is on employees and their access to data, but of course, as an organization, you are thinking about how to surface information to your customers as well. So we've done an integration with WordPress. Our websites run through WordPress, and you can see down here we've got a chatbot window. If I click on it, it auto launches. Again, you get that instant greeting. Now it doesn't know who I am, so it says hello visitor. Tells me what I could ask about, and then I can come in here, and I'm going to do some shorthand since I know what keywords it's looking for, but a normal user would probably be asking these things with a full sentence. And I can say, yeah, I want to know about iOLAP services. And I put in, yes, it tells that we have six service areas. I want to know about Nick's big data service area that he leads. It's going to give me some information. You can see we put some images in here, and that's just to kind of show, art of the possible. People want to know what kind of multimedia can, chatbot handle. Okay, we can put pictures in. You can see we've got formatting with, list and so forth. It's asking me a follow-up question, would I like to know more? And that's because, again, when we think about voice-first design, if I was getting this information audibly, there's a limit to how much I want to hear anybody talk, right? I like to have interactive discussions. I already feel like I'm doing a lot of talking here. And so, again, we try and chunk up the information. If the users didn't get what they wanted in the first section, then they can be prompted to say, yeah, I want more information. Okay, now more information about Nick's team and that they specialize in streaming data and serverless and all the things you heard about upstairs. Do I want to know more? Yes. Now it realizes, like, okay, you're really looking maybe for some very specific information. So you can see I get prompted for my email. Put my email in. It's going to ask for confirmation. Yes, that's my email. And then it wants to know what I'm going to ask next. I know that by putting my email in, I can gather that somebody's probably going to reach out and contact me. So again, I mentioned earlier that voice isn't just voice and conversation. Voice is just a part of what we call conversational AI, which is more what this chatbot represents. And conversational AI is, again, not just about getting data out, but it's also about putting data in. So we've now collected some information. And if I launch my email, I'll give it a minute, but you'll see that I get an email alert. So that's another thing that people want to know. They want to be alerted when data comes in. It's a very simple example, but you could have sales reps out in the field, or in the case of oil and gas, you could have people out in the oil field. So there you go. You can see over here, it's got I got an alert. This email was just submitted and the time. And so, but you could have workers out in the oil field that are speaking data into systems, and then maybe it crosses a certain threshold, what they reported, and then that would automatically get sent to somebody. It could be sent via email or via text, or they might be asking, hey, are there any alerts? Or they might get a notification when they're in the mobile app, hey, you have an alert. What are they? This oil rig has a high pressure above X amount. So there's a lot that we can do there. So this is a very public-facing chatbot. Another part of our platform is that we can, at the intent level within the skill for each individual question, we can basically control the level of authentication that's required to get that information. And so it scales from, hey, there's no authentication required, which is the case for these public-facing questions, to what Nick talked about with group and user management, saying, hey, you're allowed to have this amount of access to this type of data, right? You don't want people in your sales organization asking HR questions, what's Nick's salary? Something to that effect, right? There's certainly, we need controls around all that. Again, when we think about channels, we also think about corporate or kind of team collaboration tools. So I'm going to pull up Slack. You'll see we have an integration with Slack. So again, we're just trying to surface the information wherever, and this is using the same public-facing chatbot that I just showed on the website. So if I say, what can I ask? It's going to give me the same list of menus. Now Slack has its own formatting that's very non-standard, so we need to make some adjustments for that, but you can see it still allows me to ask about service areas and history, corporate history and so forth, and all these sorts of things. So we're just trying to surface the information wherever the different personas of your organization need access to it. So I guess the 5 channels I would review are public-facing chatbots, internal intranet websites. We could put a chatbot on that. We've got the mobile app. Of course, there's the Echo devices. We can also integrate with call centers, so with AWS Connect. Almost every big enterprise has a call center. They are areas of significant cost, so being able to put conversational AI into your call center, basically, if there's some sort of emergency event and you've got customers calling in at 2 a.m., you've got this infinitely scalable persona of Alexa that can handle questions in a conversational way, and then the team collaboration. So 5 channels that we service through our platform. Any questions?
Before we wrap then, I want to ask a question of you. What's your feedback? Think about your organization. Give me ideas for how that improves. Give me ideas for use cases. And so live question, or if anybody's got something off the top of your head, think about your processes. What would be a cool process in your organization for voice? Mind blown, right? Well, I'd love to talk to you about it. If you've got ideas, think through it. We want to continually innovate, continually add features to this. For us, it's an accelerator, it's a platform. We can take this and talk to you about if you wanted a chatbot for your website and expose it to an Alexa skill, we can help you do that with this platform. So, but I want to hear about your use cases, what you think is valuable, what you think is gimmicky, so we can make this a better environment for everybody. So, thank you guys.